Well, thank you both for taking the time. Congrats on selling out a world premiere at a festival and then leading to another screening, and then you have to limit the virtual kind of stuff. I'll throw it to Wendy first. When did you get that news? Like, hey, we sold out a prestigious thing.
It was about a week ago, and it did come as a great surprise, and it's just wonderful. I mean, I think it's because a lot of people can relate to feeling anxious, or maybe they just like comedy, but we were really thrilled.
To add to that, I think this is the only screening that I've heard being sold out in advance. So that's a really big deal, and
Oh.
congrats on that end. Now, Tiffany, I'll throw the two-parter at you. And the first part is, how are you today? And the second part is, do you have to change the answer to how are you, being that you're, the focal point of a movie called Anxiety Club?
Yes, today I am good. I am anxious as usual, but it has changed since going through exposure therapy. The subject matter of my anxiety is different today than it used to be.
Well, can you take compliments or you're done for the day and maxed out already?
Compliments?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love them. If you have some, I'll take all of them.
Okay, so people going through your social media, that 2022 post of I quit TikTok for a year and here's all the stuff that I did. That's a very inspirational post that you had right there. And I think anybody who watches that will get the idea of, oh, maybe I should be better with my time. Now, after that happened, how were your 2023 and how is your 2024 by comparison?
Well, if we're being all the way honest, what's interesting is I ended up going through a divorce in 2023 and 2024. So we had wrapped up filming, and none of that made it into the film, but it's almost like I had completed the exposure therapy just in time to be forced to do things alone with my kids because I didn't have a backup. For so long, I had relied on my husband to be the one to take them to do fun things.
Sure.
And the exposure therapy really allowed me to be the mom that I always wanted to be. So while it was tough, I had the tools to make it through 23 and 24. And I'm so excited to see what's on the horizon for me.
That is a great answer. It sounds like it gave you the tools so you can prep, just as you said. Now, Wendy, reading your bio, I think it was during the Nickelodeon production where you kind of realized where you were with anxiety. When did you kind of realize or start to see that anxiety was a normal thing and not just like how people's parents would go, oh, you're just in a mood?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd struggled with anxiety for a long time. And I would say when I did that segment on teens with anxiety for Nick News with Linda Ellerby that you're referring to, even then, I mean, I remember feeling a little uncomfortable talking about my own anxiety. So even then, it was, it was different for me then. But I think it's just something that is so ubiquitous. I mean, so many people have anxiety. And, I think for some of us, there are certain things that are more difficult than for others. And, it is, anxiety is normal, but sometimes it gets, for some of us, if it affects our daily lives, then, it's worth dealing with in a different way and getting help and looking into things that we can do so that there's not as much suffering. But it's something that has become a more common conversation now, and that's great. We don't have to live with the suffering. We don't have to live feeling all those terrible feelings inside. We can do things that will help bring us closer to healing.
Well said. Now back to you, Tiffany. It used to be the old stereotype of, oh, all comedians are miserable and pacing around when they're not entertaining people. And they would have this fear that if they were happy, then they couldn't be funny. When did you
Mm.
start to realize that you could be healthy and funny at the same time?
I am still waiting to realize that. I
Oh,
don't know. I don't think that being self-aware is such a huge part of making sure that you're okay. And so when I am not doing well, I'm aware and taking steps to work towards it, whatever it is, whether it's depression or anxiety. And so there's different seasons where I'm doing better than others. But I don't think I know so many comedians who I think you need a little bit of trauma in order to be a comedian, because otherwise, why would you get on stage in front of so many people willing to put yourself out there and potentially be ridiculed? But for the most part, I think it's possible to be healthy and be funny at the same time, as long as you're constantly working to be better than you were yesterday. And that's what I do.
Well, if I could play devil's advocate here, prop comics, I don't think that they need the trauma.
No, I think
I mean, you'd have to assume the prop comic is a handy person who's happy to repeat the same jokes in the same order all the time.
He's so happy. Prop comics do seem happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Wendy, did you have any difficulty with aligning comics to be part of this? Because a lot of times people, I think the expression is you don't want to know how the sausage is made. In this case, a lot of comics don't want you to know who's behind the actual jokes. They want you to think that they're always that funny person on stage.
Well, you know, the comics that are in this film are all people who talk about their anxiety and their mental health in their material. So they're either doing stand-up about it or they're doing sketch videos about it. So these are people who are very happy to talk about their mental health and very comfortable talking about their mental health. And so that was it became that. It became that we were only going to use people in this film who were very open about it and whose comedy illustrates what they're feeling on the inside. And they're all so relatable, you know. I mean, it's not, you know, I always say the film is about anxiety through the eyes of comedians. It's not about anxious comedians per se. It's really about the universal or the common experience of anxiety, but is told through, you know, the eyes of comedians who are just more interesting to listen to when they're talking about just about anything.
Is there a lot on the cutting room floor, given how many funny people you spoke with?
There are, there are a few comedians that a few people that we had to lose for one reason or another, not because they weren't wonderful, but because you know, maybe maybe they didn't have material about anxiety like the others, or you know, it just evolved. And yes, I mean, that was one of the hardest things for me was, you know, there's a saying, you have to kill your darlings in film. And it means that you have to cut, you know, maybe you've heard it, but you have to cut a lot of things out that you get attached to. And that was very hard for me as a people pleaser, because I kept thinking, oh no, but they're going to want that in there. And so by the end, that was probably my biggest lesson in terms of making a documentary film, is that it's better with, you know, when you have just the most beautiful core parts of it.
Got it. Okay. Well, the same closing question I have for both of you, and we'll throw it to Tiffany first. Now, Anxiety Club to us is a new film. Again, the sold out world premiere, the additional screening, etc. You're a prolific podcaster. Are we allowed to know what you're working on, what's coming up for you in the near future, or is it under embargoes and we just have to keep checking Instagram to find out?
No, of course. I could tell you exactly what I'm working on. I have a second book coming out. I am currently on tour for one of my podcasts, the Take It or Leave It podcast. And I have taken a break from making silly videos at the moment because I'm in a transitional period of my life where I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is I want to do.
Wow. Before I ask the same thing to Wendy, is the Take It or Leave It at all a reference to the band The Strokes?
No, it's not that cool. It's about our advice. You can take it or leave it because we don't know what we're talking about most of the time.
Well, sometimes you find that a lyric inspires segments of particular shows. But anyway,
Yeah.
Wendy, you here. Again, new film to us. You have watched it a lot of times in the editing room. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas and all that brewing, but are we allowed to know what's next, or is the Hollywood Reporter saying we can't find out until it has the press release going out?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about what my next documentary film will be, but at the moment, I have to say, I'm really focused on bringing this film out into the communities that need it most. I'm hoping to do, regional festivals and community events and conferences, and to have screenings and panel discussions all over the country and maybe internationally for a period of time. So I really feel like this is my baby, and I want to give it a lot of love in the coming year, maybe beyond, and just be a part of the conversation with people who want to talk about it and who need to talk about it. And the next film will, that will come in the process, but nothing to tell at this point.
Theoretically, we could get an Anxiety Club 2.
Somebody just said that yesterday. That is crazy. Somebody did just mention that yesterday, somebody on the team. So what would that look like?
To me, it was
Yeah.
that a theoretical. Well,
Yeah.
it's either Tiffany's next journey with the
Yeah.
progress, and then wrangling in a bunch more comics, or Tiffany mentoring that next comic,
Yep. Teaching them everything I know.
Right.
or it's just a mockumentary and you call it Anxiety Club 2 Electric Boogaloo, and you just think of all the great things that come from that. I mean, so many options, right?
Right. Okay. So you're going to be a part of that Anxiety Club too, then, huh?
I look forward to doing
You'll
your
be-
music clearances and your PI investigative background work. But in the meantime, congrats to you on making this all happen, and really looking forward to what's to come from both of you. Thank you for making entertainment that's meaningful. Take the compliment.
Thank you so
That's
much,
awesome.
Darren. It's really been a pleasure.
Paltrocast.